Hello people of the internet, this is Kelly from Nice Lady Productions, and today we're going to be looking at the video shooting capabilities of the Nikon D800 series of cameras. I think this is going to be a great video for anyone interested in shooting video with the D800, D4, D600, or D7100 cameras, as the video shooting capabilities and features are very similar. Yes, this is a photo camera. It has excellent capabilities for photography, like a built-in flash, 36 megapixel sensor, and a built-in intervalometer for shooting time-lapse, which is brilliant because you don't have to buy an extra one. But what about shooting video? Let's look right into it. When you're shooting video on a DSLR, your LCD is your primary display, and so being able to have all the information for all your camera settings right there is crucial. On the D800, if you hit the info button on the back of the camera, or you slide over the shutter control button to the light bulb, you could see all the information right there for your camera settings. The D800 and D4 really introduced this cool ability to be able to switch from a photo live view with all your photo settings to a separate video live view with only your video settings. So in video shooting live view, you have your audio meters on the left, your picture control at the very top, as well as the number of minutes left in the clip that you're recording. You have your shooting settings at the bottom. On the left-hand side of the camera, you have your magnifying glass for zooming in to your picture to make sure that you're in focus. The D800 also has a camera level, which I found really handy for shooting landscape, especially if your tripod doesn't have a level on it or you can't access it quickly, as well as a live histogram. And this is great for making sure that you have a nice thick histogram while you're shooting video instead of finding out later on that you've clipped the highs or clipped the lows. Now, if you've seen my other videos, you know that I always shoot video on DSLR in manual mode. Mode controls on the D800 are kind of in a funny place. They've also moved the recording button for the video to the very top, which can easily be mistaken for the program mode if you're not looking. They feel very similar. It should be noted that if you are in the photo live view mode, you cannot record video. The only way to record video is to have the video live view set to on, and then you can hit the record button and you're rolling. Because the D800 and D4 are professional cameras, you have a plethora of controls around the camera body that you can assign to have different operation, including a really cool setting called power aperture. It gives you the ability to basically change the aperture very quietly in the camera. Now, the only caveat is this only works before you're recording. It does not work while you're recording, which to me is when you really want your aperture to be quiet. Now, if you're like me and you shoot with manual lenses that have the aperture control on the barrel, you will want to go into the f9 settings of your camera and set the aperture settings to on for the aperture ring. This basically tells the camera, I want to use my lens barrel to be able to change the aperture. You can get them declicked. I noticed something kind of quirky with the Nikon D800 when I was using a non-CPU lens without an electronic connector. I could not only hear the clicking of the lens, but an electronic clicking from within the camera. Let's listen. You can hear the click of the lens plus a click after that inside the camera. Normally you would go into the camera and you would set your up to 9 non-CPU lenses. You would put in the focal length and the maximum aperture for each lens. What I found was when I didn't put in that information, I heard exactly what I should be hearing, which is just the clicking of the lens. Okay, let's start looking at some footage from these cameras. When you're shooting video with a DSLR, there's different schools of thought of whether you want to keep the picture as flat as possible so that you have a little more latitude in post to make it more saturated or less, or more contrasty or less, or more sharp or less, or whether you want to get the look in camera. So I kind of wanted to take you through each of the picture styles of the Nikon D800 and show you right out of camera what each looks like using the same image. So let's go through them. I'm always curious about seeing footage from different cameras online because you don't know necessarily what picture style they used. And to me, picture styles can completely change the image of the camera. And we can also tweak these. Let's start with the standard picture style. This is the picture style that most cameras will be set to when you first buy them. But I never use this picture style for shooting video. I just don't find it has any room for movement. It's a great picture style if you don't want to do anything to the image. You just want to shoot something and leave it. The neutral picture style, I feel like it gives me the most dynamic range, and then I have room to play with it in post. Maybe you're shooting a scene that you just want to be out of this world saturated. This is a great picture style for you. If you're not sure you've set up your shot properly, you can always throw it in monochrome and check your highlights and your shadows. Portrait is great for shooting people. You can see it kind of blurs the background a bit. Landscape really makes the image pop. It's just super contrasty and has a lot of edge detail on it. Another thing that's going to impact your picture, of course, is your white balance. You always want a white balance. I use the Kelvin scale. I always set it Kelvin so that I can either dial in a look that I want or correct the white balance for the camera. I never use auto white balance when I'm shooting video or time lapse. Here's a photo I took of some street lights that obviously are supposed to be green. As you can see, shooting with the camera in auto white balance mode, it made them kind of blue. So I always set my own white balance. I use the Color Checker Passport by X-Rite. I was really happy with the low light capabilities of this camera. You can set the ISO by hitting the ISO button on the left and then flipping through the dial on the right. I personally try and stay around the ISO 800 mark when I'm shooting video, just because I don't want to necessarily introduce grain unless I'm going for a specific look that's really grainy. I'm not seeing any grain whatsoever in the blacks. Here's ISO 1250 and then 1600. I'm shooting this handheld, so don't tell me it can't be done. I mean, the problem with looking at test footage is you don't even know if the person knows what they're doing. Here I have it set at ISO 3200, and as you can see, I'm overexposed in this image. So let's just correct the levels a little. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And as you can see, even at ISO 3200, you have a nice image. What the crop modes offer you is the ability to use one lens and get two different shots out of that one lens. As you can see with the full frame shot, you get a really wide field of view versus the same shot using the 1.5 crop. It also has an auto crop mode in the camera so that if you mount a lens for a crop camera like a Nikon D7000, it will automatically switch to that lens so you don't see any vignetting around it using the same lens. So a lot of bang for your buck with these crop modes. So let's talk autofocus. When you're shooting manual, you want to put it in the manual position and then manual on the lens. MA on the lens in Nikon speak means that you have manual with auto override. So at any point you can manually focus even if you have it set to auto. By clicking on the center of that AFM button and using the control dial, you can choose either AFS or AFC. So let's look at autofocus continuous first. So the Nikon uses contrast detection autofocus. And what that means is it's looking for contrast changes and then it focuses on that change. This is probably the worst conditions you could be trying to use autofocus, which is a really dark environment with these small figures. I'm not trying to track one in particular because I don't know who's going to have the ball. I'm telling Nikon to track contrast in the center. Now this is the same, but with wide mode. So basically it's looking at a wider aspect of the sensor. I'm really making the Nikon work here. If I don't have time to manually set the focus on my camera, I can easily set my focus point in the camera and use an auto lens and press the shutter down halfway and boom, I'm in focus. And I know that as long as the action doesn't move behind my plane of view that's in focus or too much in front of it, I will remain in focus the entire time. So this is probably the easiest way to focus your camera. I think it's time for a little slow-mo. There are cameras on the market that are shooting full 1080p at 60 frames per second. The Nikon D800 only offers this capability at 720p. So if you're shooting for the web or you're never going to go above 720p, then this is a nice feature to have. This is 60 frames per second. Then I'm playing back at 24 frames per second. I just wish this camera did this at 1080p. Moiré is kind of like a camera creating an additional pattern around a pattern that it doesn't quite understand. You can see a little bit of a moiré effect on the bleachers. With the camera at a standstill, the moiré is less of an issue. I did find that the 720p mode on the D800 was way worse for moiré. So if you're going to shoot 720p, be cognizant that the moiré may be more of an issue. In the Nikon D800 versus the D800E, I didn't see a huge difference in moiré. And let's look at rolling shutter. The jello effect on the image when doing a whip pan or a fast movement seems to be more noticeable at the top of the image. I'm really impressed with how Nikon handled rolling shutter in these cameras. As long as you're holding your camera steady and you're not doing a lot of whip pans, rolling shutter is really a non-issue. I hope you're starting to see with this footage the dynamic range of the D800. I was really blown away with just the level of the image. The D800 and D800E offer the ability to monitor your audio using headphones. Also within the menu, you can set your headphone levels. You also have the ability to plug in a microphone and set the microphone levels. This has to be done before you're recording. If you set them based on the environment you're shooting in, you can basically set it low enough that it'll never ever blow out the sound, which is a fantastic feature. So you have not only the ability to manually set the audio points, but you can monitor them in live view, and you can monitor them using your headphones and set the levels of your headphones. Another great feature with the D800 is that it allows you to monitor the live view on both the back of the LCD as well as an external monitor. So you can have someone pulling focus off one monitor and you can be viewing all the same settings on the other. One of the big features of the Nikon D800 is the ability to have clean HDMI out. Having clean HDMI out allows you to record to an external recorder. Why would you want to do this? If you're shooting live events, you're shooting weddings, you're shooting documentary work, anything where you don't want to be hampered by the 20 or 29 minute of each file in camera. The field recorder I tested out was the Atomos Ninja 2. It's a 10-bit HDMI with HDMI pass-through. It records Apple ProRes or Avid DNX HD files onto 2.5-inch HDD or SDD discs. It gives you a decent monitor to see your picture. You also have peaking so that you can see your focus points, turn on zebras so that you can see if you're over or underexposed if you like using zebras. It also has a false color mode and a blue only mode. So with the Atomos Ninja and the D800, you really have kind of a full video recording package. Here I am, I'm recording to my SD cards in the Nikon camera. For the Ninja, you can see the image quality is very, very similar. I found it a little bit lighter. I can easily change this in post. Moreover, I hope that you're getting a sense of what you can do with this camera and just how much dynamic range the sensor has. For shooting video, I'm blown away by the D800. This wouldn't be a Nice Lady production review without a little chihuahua thrown in. So that's it from me. If you like this kind of review, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Like, comment, dislike, whatever you want to do. This is it from me. See ya.